My name is Landon DeCrastis. I'm the pastor of Fishers Point Community Church over in Fishers, Indiana. I wanted to make this video today to invite you into a thought process I've been having on something I've been studying. And us pastors, a lot of us get really nerded out or geeked out, I guess, about some things that we are studying, and we preach about it, we teach about it. But I thought this might be an interesting way to invite you into the process that I'm going through. It's not a process that has an end cap right now. It doesn't have I haven't completed this process, but I thought why not? Why not discuss it via here? And if you have anything else to add constructively to this, you can go ahead and put it down in the comments section, and we can kind of keep a discussion going on. One thing that I started to think about during this Christmas season was something that we hear about on a regular basis. The baby born in Bethlehem. We know that was Jesus. We know he came for us. God sent his one and only son, blah, 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 blah. We know that. And obviously it's not a blah, blah, blah situation. Very important. But I wanted to tell you something that popped into my head. As I was thinking about it, I thought about the town of Bethlehem. Bethlehem in Hebrew literally means house of bread. And when I thought about that, I repeated it in my head over and over and over, and I thought I would like to study bread in the Bible to see what the Bible has told us about what bread symbolizes. Obviously, Bethlehem was a location, but I thought it was just an interesting way to start a thought process for me. Well, as I went into the scriptures, I realized that bread has an amazing significance, and I wanted to lead you through this thought process. First of all, in the book of Exodus, we hear about the unleavened bread. We hear about how God told them to not put any, not allow the bread to rise and all that kind of thing. They exited Egypt and were able to eat this bread. And what we see in that whole story, I won't go into all of it because I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here, is that God was showing his provision for those that were leaving and following the word of the Lord. Well, we fast forward a little bit. God provides when they're in the wilderness, wandering around and complaining about how hungry they are and how they need something. God provides manna for them, and it's another example of God's provision. And actually in the scriptures itself, God was saying he will provide bread that will come from the sky, and he gives all the particular regulations. When fast forward even from that, when God is instructing the Israelite people to build the tabernacle, he instructs them to put 12 loaves in the tabernacle, what we call showbread, or the bread of presence. And this bread was supposed to symbolize, because of the 12 loaves, one for each of the tribes of Israel. Sorry about that. And it was supposed to symbolize God's presence and God's fellowship and God's desire to commune with humanity. And we'll get to that later. We fast forward even from that. We see that the bread in Deuteronomy was used as a promise of abundance about the land that they entered, or they are about to enter, kind of in retrospect. And it describes it as this: a land where bread will not be scarce. So there is abundance, this God wanting to pour out himself and pour out his abundance upon the people. 2 Kings gives us a story about Elisha. So this is an actual practical story, not so much symbolic. But Elisha does the same kind of miracle we'll talk about here in a little bit with Jesus. But Elisha was able to channel God's power to multiply bread for 100 men. So there could have been even more than that, but men specifically 100. We fast forward from that, 1 Samuel, the word bread was used to symbolize this coming together and this alliance, this covenant with people, whether for good or for bad. 1 Samuel was talking about that. So there is this connection because of bread was given. First and Second Chronicles, bread, quote unquote, was used, was a holy item that was supposed to be set aside, that this particular concept was used to signify holiness and everything. So we go even further and we see that Job described his bread, his daily bread, as his day-to-day provision, that he would rather have the presence of God or the favor of God than this particular provision, but he obviously does appreciate it. Fast forward from that, we see Isaiah was talking about bread in the concept of God's gift to us in a way of teaching. He talks about God giving us the bread of adversity to teach us how to live for Him, blah, blah, blah. But Isaiah uses that in that way. Ezekiel, this is an interesting story. If we remember how God instructs Ezekiel to lay on his side for 390 days, and one of the things that God tells him he can have is bread to sustain him. So for Ezekiel, that was a sustaining act. Having the bread. So then we cross over, way fast forward here into the New Testament. Jesus, born in this Bethlehem, this house of bread, same Jesus grows up. He calls himself the bread of life. Jesus takes this bread, we realize later on, with the two different times of multiplying these loaves and these fish. He multiplies the bread, just like we heard about from Elisha back in the day. And then we talk about the Last Supper right before his death and resurrection. Then Jesus takes this loaf, this unleavened bread, he passes it out to his disciples, and he raises it up to heaven, and he blesses it, and he said, "This is my body." It just doesn't seem like that there is a coincidence, like that there's no connection here, I guess. And it's more than a coincidence. And it seems like that God, through this particular word, bread, is trying to tell us something. I think what God is trying to teach us is that not only does He provide for us, but He wants to be connected to us. He wants to have an alliance with us, a friendship, a fellowship. He wants to sustain us. And He wants us to know that it's not just material stuff that sustains us, but it's Him, the true bread of life.